Good afternoon. Today is October 5th, 2021, excuse me. And today we had an uptrend day, probably just a correction on the daily chart, a small correction. So you can see we trying to click that measured move. Well, we made this leg up and then we hit the measured move. And it looks like we made another leg up and really just went sideways from there. So this is the trend channel I was looking at for the day. Didn't really help you much. Probably gave you more confidence right here entering. But really you just had to play these small, shorter term trend lines. And so here it was a little tough because we got a break, but it started moving up a little. But there were some good entries in there, so that's what I saw. Let's take a look at the trades. So very early on, we get a second entry long. What time was that? That was 5:30. You get a second entry long. Prices were trending up, so we were looking for longs, and you get a second entry. Why is that marked as aggressive? The only reason that's marked as aggressive is because all these dojis right here, that makes us really think that this might be congestion and this breakout might fail. But I did like that. Oh, whoops. Sorry about that. And then down here, since we were in a strong uptrend, you might look at that double test, because this looks congestive too. So we might be breaking back up into that congestion, and that's what happened. So you would have gotten a scalp on that, but it's definitely aggressive. The rest of this is just way too congestive, and unfortunately, I was thinking incorrectly. We had this move up. And we got a break, and so I was expecting prices to maybe turn down. You can see I have the overnight highs and lows, but I think, look, we went higher and we made a new high, so you got to really be careful going short here. And you can see prices bounced off the highs. I wish I had that. I didn't stretch my overnight highs over. I kept my overnight highs right here. If I saw that bounce, that would have kept me out of this trade right here. I went short on a second entry short right here. But yeah, not a good idea. I mean, that was tough. That was tough for me. But anyway, you get a first entry, second entry long that could also kind of be looked at as a failure. Maybe I think you could take that, because at that point your trend line would probably be going through this, and then that would just look like a high or low. I kind of looked at this as a new swing low, but technically it's not. So here we get a second entry long, but it kind of looks like this is a new low, first failed second entry short too. So I do like that trade. And that trade, you could have gotten like a 30-point runner. You could have at least got a depending on how you manage your runner, that is, at least gotten like a 10-point runner, 8-point runner. So then we just keep moving up. Pull back, just the first entry. Make another move up. Form some congestion. Let's mark that. And here you might take this. This looks like a first failed second entry short near the EMA. Kind of near the trend line. But I'm marking it because we're in an uptrend. We're clearly in an uptrend at this point. First entry, failed second entry right here, but that's too congestive and that's too far from the EMA. You might go long right here. I was thinking about that, just because it's close to the EMA. Break out of that congestion, pull back, bounce, go higher, form this congestion here. And you can see we break out with trend. Then we get a pullback, first entry, second entry, that fails. And so what could have kept you from going long? Well, this is a poor signal bar and it's below the EMA. So this failure fills the scalps. And look, I have my congestion drawn. So once this bar forms, I went long here, expecting a break back into congestion. And that's what you get. And you get a nice move out of that. I should have held my runner. I didn't. I just put my target at the top of congestion. And too bad for me, because I could have gotten like let's see, 40, we'll call it, like a 13-point runner. So manage your runners smart on these days, well on these days. Okay, do what you're comfortable with. That's what I was comfortable with, but I mean, in hindsight, I think you really should hold on because we're in a big uptrend. But anyway, this breaks. I don't see anything you can enter in this too far from the EMA. Here we form congestion, and it fails. It tries to go. I like this on a higher low. You might take that, but even that looks congestive, so that should make you a little nervous. But that works out. And then it looks like we're in a two-tiered downward channel. And so when that breaks, you get a first entry, a really good entry for a failed second entry short. And this gets you like a... I actually managed my runner real well. Once we got the overshoot, I exited. And this is a really good example of why an overshoot usually leads to a break. When people see this overshoot, they say, okay, I'm taking my profits. And that's exactly what I did. And everyone exits, and that's why the overshoot usually leads to a break. Perfect example right there. Then we get this huge leg down, and if you're feeling aggressive, you get a first entry off of the larger trend channel. So you might go long there, but that's aggressive. I entered on a limit order like down here. So that's a problem, though, is because like you don't know where to put your stop. So I put my stop down here, but that's a big stop. But yeah, you're at that point you're feeling pretty confident. Like we'll probably get go back to the EMA, and that's just what we did. So this is just congestive. So this is very congestive. You might go short here as a failed breakout, but that's with trend, so it's not a good idea. When you get this first failed second entry short, you might go long. It's off the trend line, but we've got a break of that trend line, so you got to be careful. And here, so this looks like I said this was a failure, but it's not. So what was I looking at that as? I would think this. I don't know. This is too congestive. You shouldn't be going long above that. I don't know what I was thinking there. Do you enter here on the failure, first failed second entry? Because look, if you treat this, which it is a new low, if you're trying to go long, first failed second entry here, you get trapped up here. So I think if you're thinking about going long, first of all, your stop needs to go down here, but you should probably go long one tick above this. I think that's where the failure occurred. So anyway, the rest of this is too congestive for my liking. But then we come here. This is a new low, and you get a first entry, failed second entry, short. And I like this because it looks like price rejection. We're getting two legs of correction too. It looks like a two-legged pullback. And here we get a first entry, second entry. This is aggressive because it's below the EMA. But again, it looks like two legs of correction. This is just too congestive up here. And then we start moving down. And I think this is a decent opportunity to go short, especially because we moved down into this congestion. This looks like a failed breakout. Looks like a failed breakout, and it's a failed second entry long. After that, you're too far from the EMA, and you're getting close to 1 o'clock. So that's what I saw for today. We'll take a look at my entries now. Poor behavior. For the first time in a long time, I moved my stop today, and it was on this entry here. So I looked at this as a first failed second entry, and I entered above this signal bar because I was like, oh, well, these are matching lows. But look, that just looks like one leg up. Even though we had this big stem down here that broke lower, this looks like one leg up and one leg of correction. And look, if you're patient, you get a second entry long after the second leg of correction. And that hits a scalper's profit. So you really just got to be patient. I moved my slap leg down here. And that's a huge stop. That's a huge amount of risk that I don't want to be taking. So eventually I got out of break even. You would have scalped out, but I got out of break even. That was terrible. Terrible behavior. And so, yeah, again, terrible behavior right here too. I counter trend traded. I thought, you know, I didn't have my overnight highs drawn. So if I saw that bounce here, first entry, second entry, I think I would have avoided that. Just wait until you know what's going to happen, because the market's going to give you opportunities. And look, right here you get a first entry, second entry, high or low off the trend line. And if you wait just a little bit longer, so let's see when I entered here, 640, but 9 minutes later you would have had the trade of the day right here. So just be patient. Here, this is a failed breakout of congestion. This is an aggressive trade, but it's an aggressive trade that I like. I also entered on a limit order. Okay, so maybe that is a problem, though. I should have waited for it to break higher than this. Yeah, so that's a problem. I didn't. I just entered on a limit order thinking like, oh, well, it broke above this. So I don't like that now that I'm thinking about it. Got to be careful for that. And this is a great entry here. Textbook failure. First failed second entry long. And I exited, almost got 100% of the move. So I really like that. This was a bit too aggressive. I entered on a limit order expecting, once it ticked higher here, expecting us to go back to the EMA. That's aggressive. It's good reason to expect it to go back to the EMA, but that's aggressive. And that should be all the trades I took for today. So hope you guys had a good day. I'll be back tomorrow.